All right, everyone, I should be live here. This is the pregame show because, of course, they will be, I believe, bringing the jury back fairly soon. We're going to wait a minute here, however, because Odyssey, once again, may or may not actually collate out my link. It's a big problem. So I'm going to wait. Welcome to Odyssey. We have dislikes. I am live on YouTube and Twitch. I should be live on Odyssey, but I need to make sure that the link actually works. So, yeah, I gotta just give me a moment here. Technical difficulties as usual. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is going to come up. It's just confirming on Odyssey for those that are interested there. Keep in mind, super chats are enabled, but this is primarily not a super chat show. This is banter about the Kylerittenhouse trial. We will probably get a verdict today and or a hanged jury. So we're going to be talking about that. You can clank your spoons along, or you can drink some energy drinks. I've still got a little bit left from this morning. I believe the Odyssey link is now live, actually. Let's see. Am I looking at myself? Yes, indeed I am. And the cat cleaning her paw. Of course. As though there was any doubt. I'll be talking to everyone today. Anyway, here's a recap. The Kylerittenhouse defense is ironclad. Because the weapons charge was thrown out, it's fairly clear that Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. He was attacked. He was there lawfully. I'll go through this a little bit in a bit, but I wanted to, just a second here. Formatting's all wrong on my end. Continuous boomer problems. Just wait till I have a TikTok channel. then you'll see some insanity. By the way, I do have the Law and Crime Network on here, and I do have their volume up. So when they do get back into the courthouse, I will know. I'm not going to screen share because that'd be piggybacking, and that's frowned upon, even though I don't think that they really care as long as you leave a link. Also, I think I can put polls and shit in here, on YouTube at least. I'm not 100% sure. I've seen them on other channels. Anyway, here's my take on the Rittenhouse trial so far. I would give the defense a B. I would give the prosecution like a D-, and that would be a mercy D. That doesn't mean that Rittenhouse gets exonerated. He should. He clearly acted in self-defense. I'll go through a little bit of that and my feelings on that idea. That being said, as I've said before, if he is found guilty on any major charge, not necessarily a throwaway minor charge, it'll be because people are afraid of riots. I would if I was on the jury, I'd say, well, they're going to riot anyway. Even if we throw the book at the kid, it doesn't really matter. There'll be celebratory looting. So who cares? But that's not necessarily the way that people that live in the Kenosha area think. You do have to take that into consideration. And remember, they have not been sequestered. They've been out all night, potentially, although not provably, looking at social media, maybe with a friend's phone or a friend's laptop or whatever. They are aware, I am sure, of the fact that there have been death threats against the judge. There have been death threats against them. Someone tried to photograph the jurors in order to dox them, I would assume. The leftoids do want violence, but they would want that anyway. The problem is that they want violence regardless. They don't care about the verdict. They just want to burn things down. They just want to burn Wendy's and be able to go loot and get more weave and some flat screen TVs. That's the only thing that they want because they're greedy people. And Kylerittenhouse, he defended himself. And the funny part is that the self-defense of Rittenhouse in the wake of the Kenosha riots, which were not based on anything other than a prior case, is a microcosm of the greater problem of the violence of the left. The funny part is that was only prefaced on the fact that leftoids had already decided to cause what, $50 million in damage over the course of a couple nights. Anyway, First, we'll get to one really important facet here. Before I start going into chat, super chats, regular chats, whatever, I'm mainly not going to focus on super chats tonight. You can send them. If you support my work, you can give me free money. I may or may not get to your super chat, but it will appear in the live stream there at the top. And also it will remain in the replay. So, I mean, you are getting your money's worth. It's still there for posterity. What I would say is this. We have a situation right here where Kyle Rittenhouse, he goes, and this is provable. He goes to a riot zone, but he was not part of any riot. He was initially intending to defend a business. That was the reason that he was there. He had body armor. He had his AR-15. He was hanging around a car store. At some point, he gives away his body armor. And by the way, it has been debunked. So tell your leftoid friends this when they say, well, Rittenhouse's mother shouldn't have driven him across state lines. You know, a 10-minute drive, by the way, if you look at the map of where he lived in Astoria and where Kenosha is. She didn't do that. There's no proof that he caught a ride with his mother at all. So he had a gun that was illegal in the state. The weapons charge was thrown out. It had been in the state to begin with. You can look at his friend there and say, well, it was an illegal straw purchase because he intended to give it to Rittenhouse. They'll have a long time proving that. He gives his body armor away at one point, which means that if he's planning to go and massacre a bunch of people, well, I mean, why would you give away your body armor? If you're a murderous individual, a white supremacist or whatever, if you're trying to be a vigilante, why do you give your armor to another individual? Why do you go out unarmored? It corroborates Kyle Rittenhouse's defense, which is the idea that he predominantly went there first to guard a business. The police lines moved past the business, and I wish that the defense had been more clear on this. And I'll get into the defense and their problems as well, because there are a couple of them. Although the prosecution's more problematic, the defense a little bit less so, but there were still, I think that the assistant defense lawyer was more effective than the main defense lawyer. I wish they had put Baldy up there to give the final little bit there. And then he moves past the police lines. There's no more threat to the car store that he's guarding, and he was invited to do that. This is something that the prosecution lied about repeatedly. He gives aid to people. We know that. It's proven. He puts out fires. We've got him on video. We know that. It's proven. He gets chased by an individual after putting out one fire, an individual who was apparently psychopathic and unmedicated, attacks him. He shoots him. He then continues to flee. He's attacked by other individuals, and he acts in self-defense. Now, some people are saying, well, if the jury thought that he was not guilty in the first count, that is, I can't remember which one was the first attacker. Was it? It was Rosenbaum, I think, the psychopathic manlet, as literally proclaimed by the prosecution, which is surreal. He attacks him. He fires 4 times. He neutralizes that threat, kills him. And then you've got a big kerfuffle. It was like 20 minutes of goddamn testimony on both sides with regards to where the soot was on the dude's hand. He attacked Rittenhouse, potentially, by the way, with an ammonia and bleach chemical weapon. We're not entirely sure, because apparently the prosecution didn't even retain that evidence. I wonder why that would happen. He then flees. He flees towards police lines to give himself up, and he did. And this corroborates him even more. I think when people are saying, well, they've deliberated for several hours and they didn't have a verdict, obviously they're going to find him guilty. I would doubt that. They have to go through each individual major charge and all of the minor charges. If there's even one juror there that is taking their legal duty seriously, of course it's going to take more than the first few hours of the first day. Pending, they give the jury their instructions. They have 5 or 6 hours or something. That's not long enough to go through all those charges. Hell, a couple of hours later, they had to get more copies of the jury instructions. They requested apparently 11 copies of the first part of that, and then later the entire thing. The reason why is I think they're taking their job seriously. I expect that Kyle Rittenhouse is likely to be exonerated on all charges. If they find him to have acted in self-defense in the first attack, the rest is cut and dry. Because if he legally carried his weapon, and this is the kicker, he goes to Kenosha, he didn't traffic a weapon, he wasn't illegally possessing a weapon, he didn't do anything illegal with that weapon, unless you believe the extremely grainy drone footage which the prosecution offered, which is negligible in its use because it's like in, not even 240. It's like watching UFO footage. If you don't believe that he pointed his gun at anyone, I don't think anyone even claims that he issued any verbal threats, although verbal threats allegedly were issued towards him. He wasn't illegally carrying the weapon. He didn't traffic the weapon. He didn't do anything illegal. He was lawfully there in Kenosha. They should acquit on all charges. On the first charge, because he was attacked while doing nothing wrong. Subsequent to that, other people thought he did something wrong, but they were in turn incorrect. This would be the proper finding of the jury. In my opinion, they should acquit him on all charges. The fact that the judge didn't sequester the jury and hadn't sequestered the jury for some time before is surreal, honestly. I think in such a high-profile case, that makes absolutely no sense. I think that he's expecting the potential of a mistrial regardless of the outcome, though. He may decide to issue mistrial with prejudice, even if they find him guilty. I think that could be part of it. He said, well, you weren't sequestered. One of you was looking up stuff. I happen to know this because I'm the judge. There was prosecutorial misconduct. You violated his Fifth Amendment rights. That is possible. And by the way, that'll rile up the rioters even more. There are 100 BLM members, which BLM shouldn't even be there because it's not a racial case. He shot 3 white people and tried to shoot a 4th at one point. The skateboard dude, who apparently has been identified, but is not part of the trial anyway, which could cause its own legal problems, I think. The problem is this. You've got a bunch of people outside screaming at the jury, trying to affect the outcome. And then you also have grifters. I'm not going to name names, but they've got jack shit as far as evidence with regards to the U.S. Marshal last night supposedly saying, whoa, there's going to be a hung jury, maybe. A couple of the jurors don't know how to. They've got a unanimous verdict, which would indicate if it was that quickly, it would be exoneration. But there's a couple people that are holdouts. They're worried about their communities burning down. I doubt that. I really do. In the face of the prior unfortunate predictions by this individual and others, really, that didn't come true. But yeah, the prosecution withheld evidence. That's the other part, and that's been pointed out in chat several times here. The prosecution did not allow the defense to look at all of the evidence that they actually had. That's misconduct. That's potentially a mistrial. Now, will a mistrial actually be put out there by the judge? First, it depends on the verdict. I mean, if they find him not guilty on all charges, don't need to find a mistrial or anything like that. Would it be with or without prejudice? That's not certain either. The judge may be hesitant to do that because it would mean he couldn't be retried at the state level on any of those charges. Now, another thing that people have constantly talked about is, would Beijing Biden be insane enough to try to bring federal charges? I mean, if these state level charges fall through, if he's found not guilty, etc., would they try to retry him under federal law? That would be the biggest political mistake of the century. But then again, Beijing Biden's nuts. So, you never know. I mean, he doesn't make his own decisions. He's a steward, an asterisk president, but it's possible. Get to a few of these super chats, by the way. Crimes Against Humanity, Hocus Pocus Out of Focus. Yes, by the way, there is a song called Hocus Pocus by a band called Focus, a Dutch band, which makes it even more mimetic in my opinion. It's basically yodeling, but it is a really good rock song. It reminds me of King Crimson. Take a look at it. Hocus Pocus by the band Focus. It's, I think, 1973 or something. Apparently it was a minor hit. Actually, it did pretty well. Adam THM, Tim Pool's first video of the day was black-pilled as fuck. I'm starting to wonder if Tim is even worth watching. It seems more like theater than serious. He's worth watching. He just has differences of opinion that may or may not be adequate. I mean, he might be right. It might be that Kyle Rittenhouse gets the book thrown at him. Then he has to put his mercy before the court and hope that the judge grants a mistrial. They have moved again for a mistrial with prejudice, by the way. John Cordisco's Corner. Styx, the problem is fear from one or more jurors if they vote acquittal. Jurors have to live there after the trial. Yeah, I mean, that's a big problem in the internet era, which our founders, which instituted such wise decisions, did not, I think, foresee happening. But that's always been a thing. There's jury intimidation all the time. Rakita Law, actually, if you watched their channel the other night, we're talking about how it happens even in minor cases. Sometimes they're not even criminal. You get a civil case and somebody, they end up with a low reputation among the police. They keep getting stopped for traffic violations. They end up with the community against them because it's like inbred and there's a bunch of people from one family and it's kind of clannish, feudalish or whatever. It's like, you know, Jethro, toothless Jethro hating his neighbors because they wronged his great-grandpappy 100 years ago. And that can happen. And that's in much of the United States. Shane Berryhill, the prosecution sent them a degraded version of the footage on purpose. Immediate mistrial on grounds of evidence tampering. Tim Pool covered it. Yeah, they could, but that's up to the judge. Will the judge do such a thing? It's doubtful, in all honesty, but it's possible. Doc Holliday, justice and liberty for all my ass. When people lose faith in law and order, chaos and anarchy will be the result. Yeah, that's why people need to get civically minded. Rise up, take over the local precincts, take over the housing authorities and the school boards. By the way, Beijing Biden attacking parents who decide to criticize school boards for their racial revisionism, aka critical race theory, which I call critical race hypothesis. Brian Bradley, the way your headphones are laying across your neck, it looks like the logo for Laudo Guitars, a made-in-USA company in New Jersey. Let's go, Brandon. Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of a crimp in that. Oni3, hope you're doing well today. I'm managing stupid physical anxiety stuff. Not as bad as 2 years ago. Back then I had a constant panic attacks due to poor sleep and a crappy job. Doing a lot better in general. No, that's good. It sounds sort of like what I went through after my overdose. Anhedonia, physical problems, panic attacks, definitely. Don't really have those anymore. Even when I get derealization now randomly, I'm like, well, you know, I've been through it before, fuck it. Logan Orr, if Kyle goes to prison, we should all donate to his books. Make his time in prison awesome. Well, I mean, Maxine Waters has a really good suggestion for what to do if a trial doesn't go your way. Stay in the streets and shout and, you know, intimidate people. That's basically what she said. But, I mean, if the other side, of course, does that, of course, it's considered domestic terrorism, I guess. They're hoping that you won't take to the streets. They're hoping that you won't speak out. Outraged Deer. Hey, Styx, would you ever do a video on the New Mexico midterms? It's looking to be a close race with some crazy family politics and a political outsider. I don't know anything about the race there, but I'll look into it. Kyle Rittenhouse. Admit it, y'all, I'm gangsta as hell. Yeah, I mean, he defended himself. If he hadn't defended himself, he'd be dead. That's the long and short of it. He had to make a decision. Thankfully, he was armed at the time. I guess the prosecutor thinks that he should have had a concealed weapon, that he shouldn't have been open, because open carrying is somehow a fucking provocation, even though it's legal. And SCOTUS is about to weigh in on this case too. They've got a pending case before them that could bring either constitutional carry or shall issue concealed carry permitting to the entire nation. Well, I guess this trial should have been suspended till after that decision now, shouldn't it? Dusty Brown, $4.99, no comment, thank you. Romanian TV, V here. Any chance I can join you, Styx? I'm not currently, sadly, set up to have other people on this call because I'm in the wrong browser, actually. There are very, very large limits on what you can do unless you're, with StreamYard, I mean. Unless you're using Chrome at this point. So I don't know that I can actually do that. Although it'd be interesting. It'd make my job easier. I have to talk less. and I can still get that sweet cash. I'm just joking. JB, hey Styx, Quebecer here. Did you visit Quebec much? I've been in Montreal a couple times. I went to the Biodome, which I thought was fun as a kid. Otherwise, not really. Ryan B, do you think Biden has a DNC-approved butt plug to keep him from farting every time he yawns? He's president who would bring federal charges. Yeah, probably. He probably just takes lots of Beano. Or John Cardisco's Corner. Follow-up point, if the jury votes acquittal, then the prosecution gets away with their deception and do it to someone else if no dismissal. Yeah, potentially. But I think if he's found not guilty on all charges, the prosecutor's, career is basically over. The prosecutor went all in because he's like, yes, if I can nail this kid, this evil white supremacist, I can write a book. And China will buy, 10,000 copies, and I'll make a six-figure sum off that. So what happens? Joe Biden's dentures, don't get brazen with me. Logan Orr, 4 doors, more whores, was right. Yes, apparently they brought up the fact that Rittenhouse, his TikTok name was 4 doors, more whores, and that's become a minor meme. It's like, yes, no teenager ever chose a username that was obtuse and potentially antagonistic. Yeah, Styx Hexenhammer 666, by the way, never existed. Crystal, they should wait to give the non-guilty verdict till tomorrow because the high is 36 and low 25, so hopefully there will be less of a chance Antifa and BLM riot due to the cold. Hopefully. No, they don't care. They'll just burn a dumpster to keep warm. If anything, they'll just burn more things. Oh, shit, it's cold out. Give me my fucking Molotovs. I'll take care of this fucking shit. They did that before. That's what they were doing in Kenosha from the get-go. Stephen McIntyre, judge seems to be not brainwashed. Maybe he'll call a mistrial. It's possible. Keep in mind, the judge is not biased. The judge appears biased because he's on the side of the Constitution, but the Constitution clearly is on the side of Rittenhouse. People are mistaking this. I've got all sorts of leftoids all over the internet dogpiling me, like on fucking Twitter and shit like that, saying, well, the judge wants vigilantism to be illegal. The judge is a Trumper. Yeah, just look at the ringtone on his phone. It was proud to be an American. Like that song never existed before the Trump 2016 campaign. I already made a video on that on alt tech, new tech rather. Claire McGuire Art, you are a living legend. Thanks for your work. I'm glad to hear that. If I'm a legend, that means 100 years from now, people will think that I flew around on rocks and did magic and shit. Not the magic that I actually do, but they'll think I was like Harry Potter or something. That'll be a cool story. I wish I could be alive to read my own epitaph, I guess. Big Game Hunter 012. Styx responding to Barstool Sports tweet made my morning. Viva. Yes, Barstool Sports thinks that a bunch of morons are the top female singers of all time. And I'm like, you never heard of Kim Wilde or Susie Sue or Kate Bush? Timothy Monk. Kyle's either guilty of defending himself while conservative or of murdering Little Binger's career, depending on political affiliation. Potentially. Ings not. Hey, Styx, hope you're having a good day. Do you think the jury taking its time is a good sign for an innocent or acquittal verdict? This is actually a really good springboard into something else I wanted to talk about. A lot of people are saying, well, if it takes too long, it's bad for Rittenhouse or bad for the prosecution. If it's too short, it's bad for Rittenhouse or bad for the prosecution. We have no clue what's going on in the jury's minds. And the idea that a U.S. Marshal tipped off certain third parties that we won't mention to the folks that there was going to be a hung jury potentially, that's bullshit. Nobody knows what's going on in the jury room, other than a handful of people who damn well know not to fucking shut their mouths because they'll lose their job because they're personally identifiable. The bailiff and a handful of marshals. Yeah, they're going to risk, hey, I'm making $70K a year in a nice cushy job where I don't have to go out on the street. I don't have to police things actively. I'm sitting here in the courthouse eating, fucking marmalade. Let me risk all of that. Let me risk my pension in order to give news to someone who predominantly is known as a Twitter troll. That makes a lot of sense. TG, keep up the good fight. Absolutely. Brandon, I'm a server and my name is Brandon. The amount of people I've heard making Let's Go Brandon jokes has been refreshing. I'm not surprised. Mike H. Mike Herbert from Parler here. Great work, Styx. And now that we spent a year rebuilding Parler from scratch, we look forward to seeing you in 2022. Oh, excellent. Yeah, Parler is going on pretty well, actually, overall. How many people are following me on Parler? Let me check that really quickly. Let me get a read on that. I don't actually know. 52,000 followers. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty successful. HTM 101. Sup, Styx? Recently got a bird. I named it Sinatra. Interesting. I've never been into having birds. Like, you know, they shit everywhere. You have to, like, get a subscription to the New York Times and then shred it up and put it in their cage so you can remove all the bird shit and stuff. No thanks. You can eat them, though. That's a benefit. John Zick. Prosecutor trying to get Kyle for being irresponsible with a gun while pointing an AR at a jury with finger on the trigger. In what world are we? Well, it had been professionally checked just seconds prior. I'm not in on that meme because the defense lawyer also didn't have any trigger discipline. He didn't sweep it over the crowd or anything, but he did have his finger on the trigger, not on the trigger guard. So I'm not going to jump down the dude's throat because these are urbanites. They don't know how to use a gun. Jehovah's Thickness. Rosenbaum was a father of 5. Google Joseph Rosenbaum, 5 kids to learn more. I get the joke. Yeah, I got through those. Probably a bunch of shit on Odyssey too. So we've got almost 10 BLUs, actually, Biden loser units currently watching. Almost 3,000 viewers between YouTube and Twitch. By the way, hello to all of you on Twitch. I do appreciate you, although you cannot do super chats. I need more people to subscribe to the channel before I can do that. Make sure to tell your friends. The clankdom has come. The kingdom expands. And of course, we are on verdict watch. No telling, I guess, when exactly they're going to reconvene the jury. I do have the Law and Crime Network currently live. Of course, I've got my headphones in for a reason. If they go live, I will be intermittently listening to them as well because, I mean, the judge would be on there saying his bit, the jury. I expect that in a fair world, Kyle Rittenhouse is exonerated on all charges. Am I predicting that? At this point, it's impossible to tell. The weapons charge being thrown out is extremely good for Rittenhouse. The fact that provocation was admitted, potentially in favor of the prosecution, that's not good news. How do these balance? I really can't tell you. This is one weird trial, and the jury's not even sequestered. So keeping that in mind, we're not exactly sure. I would like to believe that the clear-cut self-defense of Rittenhouse will stand up in the court. I'm not sure that it will. I'm hopeful. I'm reasonably optimistic at this point because of the weapons charge being thrown out. By the way, it's funny how many people still think that Kyle Rittenhouse trafficked across state lines with an illegal weapon being driven by his mom and went there specifically with some sort of murderous racial motivation, even though all of those things have been completely disproven. It's really great. White Weasel Gaming. Hey, Styx, I appreciate your level-headed content. I feel like you are keeping me sane in the sea of black pill doomers. Yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm white-pilled. I'm looking at the world around me and saying things are shaping up to improve fairly soon. BP, Styx, have you ever had a Reddit account? The salt there will be delicious when Rittenhouse is acquitted. We don't know that he will be, and no, I've not used Reddit. I made a couple of shit posts once over the course of a single afternoon, looked at the format of how Reddit works and said, fuck this, and then I abandoned the platform. The Night Clerk, longtime lurker, first-time contributor, thank you for all your hard work. Well, thank you very much as well. The Grizzly, acquittal, mistrial, or guilty? Which do you think is most likely and why? I think that a mistrial is fairly likely at this point. Not that it wasn't to begin with. If you can't determine that he was doing anything illegal, then the first interaction with Rosenbaum is the one that's of major importance. If they think that there's a reasonable doubt that he acted in an antagonistic manner, but they don't feel comfortable finding self-defense, there may just be a hung jury, aka or mistrial. I don't think they find him guilty on the major charges. I think that's unlikely. They might try to give him a minor charge or two to try to prevent riots, which would be a terrible idea, but they might. They might do that. You know, you're living in a community. There's hundreds of people outside shouting for blood, and you're like, well, my house is 3 blocks away. How's it? I don't have fire insurance. Josh Eternal / is the GOAT guitarist. Change my mind. No, Lindsey Buckingham is the best guitarist after Jimi Hendrix. I would say Stevie Stevens is the most underrated, though. If you've never seen a Stevie Stevens solo, look it up. He's the guitarist that works with Billy Idol. One hell of a fucking guitarist. Stephen13, you missed my jury comment. Please read. Well, I probably can't get back to it at this point because there's so, I mean, we're almost at 11 BLUs, so I do apologize. This is not mainly a super chat stream. I'm getting to some of them. I won't be able to get to all of them. It's just impossible. Thomas, hey, Styx, I got my buck 5x4. Can I get another clank for my elk hunt? Thanks. Clank, clank. I don't have anything to clank it with, so yeah, you can hear the jiggling of the caffeine in there. Beverly, your content is much appreciated. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. Crystal, okay, but hear me out. The jury waits till the day there's a huge blizzard scheduled that night and announce him not guilty that day. If it takes till December to get there, so be it. Also, the original riots were in warmer weather in August. Yes, they were. But these rioters have Molotov cocktails, so they can keep warm. There's plenty of trash around places like Kenosha, not all of which wears an Antifa sticker or a BLM hoodie. There's plenty of trash to burn, and they will. They'll do that anyway. Again, if he has the book thrown at him, ends up with a sentence of life in prison, they will still riot and loot. It will not appease them. The BLM people, they're not there for any racial purpose because Rittenhouse killed white people. They're not there for that. They're there that they can proclaim, well, we're people of peace. We don't want any violence in our community. Horse shit. That's what you did before. Of course you want violence. Maybe not physical altercations with people like Rittenhouse, but you want to conduct arson and looting and things like that. You want free shit. Of course you do. That's why you rioted in the first place. Using, what was it? Was it Blake or Fentanyl Floyd as the excuse initially for the Kenosha riots? Jacob Blake, by the way, wielding a knife, attacking a bunch of cops and full of insanity. Agorizer, this whole mess is the fault of one Jacob Blake. Yeah, I guess he's probably still paralyzed. Napton 118, 2 euros or lira, I believe. No comment, thank you. Might be pounds, I know. I don't understand these European things over here. We are still waiting for the beginning of the return of the trial. I think that the jury's got to be there by now. They said, wasn't it 9 a.m. that they were going to reconvene? Wouldn't that have been 38 minutes ago? Or is that a further time zone? I thought that was Central Time. So they should have reconvened a half an hour ago, roughly. People can tell me in chat. I can see what you're saying. Central Time. Yeah, so it should have been 38 minutes ago, right? So they just don't have the live feed up. Jury went straight into deliberation. Oh, okay. So the judge didn't come out and instruct the jury, or there was nothing like that. So the jury is currently deliberating. I don't have any opinion on whether a prolonged or a lesser deliberation period is good or bad. You would think, well, if it takes them 3 days, it's bad for Rittenhouse because obviously there were disagreements over the charges. But if they were going to throw the book at him and they would have to find the major charges, I would think probably all together, that would be quick. It would be quick, just like a full acquittal. This would point towards maybe, number 1, a hang jury. Number 2, maybe a lesser charge, 2 lesser charges. In other words, they're giving him lesser charges to try to prevent rioting. They may get thrown out by the judge anyway, so it doesn't matter. Or number 3, the possibility of they're still haggling with 1 or more jurors. The tale yesterday, again, I won't name names, was that a U.S. Marshal had indicated that all the jurors were already, they had basically made the decisions other than 1 or 2. I don't believe this. If that were the case, then it would point towards the likelihood of acquittal. But the idea that anyone expected, and anyone reasonable didn't expect a verdict yesterday. I stayed online through it until they were sent home for the evening, just in case, because there was always that like 1 in a million chance that they came back with either an acquittal charges, hung jury, whatever, last night. It was never likely. We're looking at tonight, it's likely that they will have a verdict of one sort or another, or that they'll tell the judge they can't reach a verdict. That's likely. Yesterday, the idea that a trial with 5 different charges, all with lesser included, was only going to take 3 or 4 hours for deliberation, when it took them an hour just to read the instructions, and then they had to have other copies sent over to them thereafter, that was insane. It never made any sense. I see a lot of black pilling. I see a lot of wanton white pilling. I see a lot of craziness from people who clearly have never paid attention to a trial before. Well, I have. You don't need to be a lawyer to understand sort of the trajectory of these things. Imagine the jury goes in there and the foreman and all the others, they nod their heads at each other and say, well, I think he's guilty, or I think he's not guilty. And they all nod politely and say, oh, well, well, let's go out and tell the judge we've got a verdict. We find him guilty or not guilty on all charges. That would cause riots the likes of which the world had never seen. They're definitely sensitive to that fact. Even if they've already decided, they're biding their time for at least a few more hours, I would assume. I wouldn't expect a verdict necessarily even in the next hour, hour and a half. If we get one, it'll be later on, and that'll be out of an abundance of caution. I personally believe that in a fair world, he's found not guilty. I think that the evidence points towards no guilt. He clearly defended himself. The encounters after Rosenbaum were clear-cut self-defense if you assume he defended himself against Rosenbaum. Well, when you're chased and someone's hurling death threats at you and potentially, although this isn't technically admitted into evidence, potentially throwing a chemical weapon at you, that's fairly clear. You've done nothing illegal. You were walking around with a firearm. The firearm was legal. You were legally there. You didn't breach curfew. You did nothing wrong. This has been proven. The jury understands this. They have to determine in that initial encounter whether Rittenhouse was justified, and the rest of all the charges hinge on that. This could be why they take a bit longer. They may disagree over whether he was justified in that initial count. I would like to believe it's going to be impossible to find 12 people to agree that he wasn't. In which case, I think a hanged jury is the most likely. Second to that, full acquittal. Maybe a minor charge. You might say, well, yeah, but we kind of find that he used excessive force with regards to this one individual with the skateboard because reasons. And so we're giving him one of the lesser includes, reckless endangerment too, or something like that. It's possible. Also, I'd like to point out something else. I wish that the defense had Baldy as the final speaker instead of the main attorney. I hate to say this, but the main defending attorney is not as effective as his cohort, which is the assistant, the bald dude. He is more persuasive. Listening to him speak, he's more persuasive. When they were questioning witnesses, by the way, in the days prior, when their actual testimony prior to the final arguments, I found him more persuasive. I wish that they had the assistant attorney for Rittenhouse deliver the final spiel. I really do wish that, because when I was listening, this is the one problem with the defense. When I was listening to their final arguments with their main attorney, I zoned out. It was just like listening to the prosecution, either of the prosecutors. Both of them were unpersuasive, and there was a Binger there, and then there's the fat dude, and the fat dude is basically boring as fuck. Binger is a bit boring, but also highly emotional. It's like he's trying to sell you a sermon. He's going door to door selling you Miracle Dream Water or something. The problem is that the defense attorney that put on the final argument was not highly persuasive. He jumped around a bit. He didn't follow through with his punches on the prosecution. He didn't follow through as much as he could have on defense. He should have condensed everything down in the last couple of minutes, played the full footage and said, like, oh, what would you have done? It happened so fast, and he had no option to do anything else. This is just a kid who defended himself. He broke, and he never made it clear. Look, Rittenhouse has provably, according to the law, not broken any law in being there, carrying his gun, or doing anything else. You simply have to decide whether he was attacked and defended himself or whether he was unreasonable in his actions. And they never tied that loose end up. But now we don't even have a sequestered jury, so we might get a mistrial regardless of what happens. It'd be funny. Say he gets found guilty. Lesser charge, major charge, who cares? Judge refuses to act. He goes off to the slammer, appeals. And then another judge from a higher court has to come in and say, well, this was botched. Imagine the riots then. And by the way, I admit the jury has absolutely been intimidated. Somebody even tried to photograph the 18 jurors. Now, not just the jurors that are there, but the alternates as well. That's definitely true. But you have to intimidate all 12 of them in order to not have at least a hanged jury. If one person on that jury has a reasonable doubt and isn't intimidated and says, you know what, fuck you. I live 5 miles outside of Kenosha, so I don't care. My home has a wall around it. You know, it's going to, unlike the southern border, it's actually guarded. They can't convict him. They can try to retry him. There's no guarantee, there's no prejudice involved with the dismissal of that specific case, though. Steve Aoki is Chinese spy. Binger likes to bathe in Danny Filth. Yes, Danny Filth's horrendous piss. The only reason you would drink it is not because it is tasty, but because you reject Andy Six's logs of shit. Josh Eternal. So where do you rank Slash then, as far as a guitarist goes? In the top 100. I don't know about the top 10. Lindsey Buckingham, greatest guitarist who ever lived, other than Jimi Hendrix. That's my belief. And somehow, even though he's highly rated, he's still underrated. Watch him play a guitar sometime. And Stevie Stevens. Stevie Stevens rarely even gets into the top 100 lists. He is easily at least within the top 50. Come on, don't give me that fucking bullshit. I'm gonna do a Joe Biden. Come on, man. Stevie Stevens, one of them greatest guitarists of all time, man. Jason Brasa, $1, no comment, thank you. We're gonna go over to Odyssey really quickly. By the way, we're at 12 BLUs, 12 Biden loser units. Make sure to share out the stream far and wide, because it's the only way you get seen on YouTube these days. The algorithm's certainly not showing anyone shit. We have JMax on Odyssey. Putting in my bet for intentionally hung jury, with the judge then flushing all this shit down the drain by blaming little Binger for fucking up the case into this retarded political crusade. Clank, 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 clank. Possibly. I know I would if I was the judge. Let's say you have a case before you. The prosecution's clearly bungled, but they've also potentially violated the Fifth Amendment rights of your client. They have angered you several times openly and been confrontational with you, the judge. It's your court. You're old, you don't give a shit. You're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to fire you. They can't. What do? Oh, you can't retry him. Well, you can, but, you know, I'm officially stating that Kyle Rittenhouse is not guilty. Jim Mason, commies gonna commie. Yeah, the commies will riot and throw rocks and do their leftoid shit anyway. Jason Griffith, can you give a shout out to my man, Spanish Gillespie? Thanks. Shout out to you, my man. Keith Silvas, $1.01 without any comment. Thank you very much. Virgo for 4,200, $4.99, no comment. Thank you. I mean, why are you paying me? You're not even making a comment. I don't understand it. This isn't capitalism. This is like OnlyFans. Only at least you're getting entertained, you know, in a non-lewd manner. Over to Odyssey, neo-agnostic Zen individual. Nice. Thank you very much. Got some emojis from Twitch, by the way. Yes, by the way, I can see your Twitch chats. It's just that I can't take any super chats on Twitch. Big problem. So make sure to share out the channel. You know, I don't know how many people you need to have following you before you can do that shit. I don't know anything. I only got on Twitch a few months ago. That one guy Nova on Twitch. First time joining the stream. I like this dude. Talks sense. And Random Muffin 70 saying, P's cat is so cute. Yeah, she's tired. They actually got to go outside today. I had to retrofit their yard. There's a vine out there, a big thick one that was sort of twirled around the fence. And one of the cats tried to climb it. So I had to take out the bricks below it and cordon it off with fencing, like trellises and stuff. I took some stakes, tied the trellises to them, and it's safer at least, so they can go outside. Work off their energy. Demiurgus, greetings from New Hampshire. The people rioting ought to be the ones who see prosecutors seek wins instead of justice. Speaking of New Hampshire, this is a good segue. Did you see the other day Joe Biden gave a speech in Woodstock, New Hampshire? No, that's not the Woodstock of concert fame, nor the one that I'm from in Vermont. That's north of I think like 30 miles north of Lebanon, if I remember correctly. I think I was on the literal bridge he gave a speech on. He's sitting there in a snow flurry. There's more Secret Service agents than there are onlookers. There's like maybe a couple dozen people watching him. Security was larger than the audience. And he's sitting there talking about how much people from New Hampshire lose per year. It's like, I think it was $440 or $460 to car repair and extra gas because the roads suck. I'm thinking, first, the roads suck because of you, because of the feds. And you've been in the Senate, you know, and the VP for, what, 40 years or more. Secondly, that pales in comparison to the increased gas prices. And I thought that was hilarious. DJ Kevin Tracy, status of cat. Well, one cat's asleep. The other one, I think, is asleep upstairs, if I remember correctly. I think she's up with Liz. She tends to raise a fuss. So sometimes if I'm live streaming, she has to be in another room. She has to be like cordoned off. Joe Michalski, buy a Monster. I like the blue one. I used to drink the green ones, which now are rock up. These days, only the white ones. And it's not because of white supremacy. No, I know that all the leftoids out there probably think that. It's my autism juice. Can't go a day without it. Matt Busby. Shout out from Alaska for Clankdom. Make your igloo now before Joe Biden decides to tax those too. Rockhopper 392, Han shot first. Yes, he did, and he was justified. He knew he'd get shot at, and Greedo was a criminal anyway, so it's all good. Thumb Ugly, listen to Styx's supplies advice. Shortage is real. 3 months from now, empty shelves are the least of our problems. God, clankin' speed. Yes, I actually got 2 additional messages from people in trucking and in logistics for an unnamed company. I won't name which one it is. As of today, the last 24 hours, showing the shortages are not getting better. I know Biden may tweet about, well, we reduced the number of, ships that couldn't undock by 29% off the California coast. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well then why are there still shortages on the shelves? Oh, that's right, there aren't enough truckers. That's only a couple of ports out of dozens in the country, major ports. And it's useless. You're taking those shipping containers and dumping them in warehouses. You're not even unloading them. Of course. Yes, there are fewer ships there. Too bad you don't have the logistics to distribute the material. Zach to the future. When you going to have a baby, Styx? All in due time. Crimes against humanity. Fentanyl Floyd is salting gay with his corpse. Yeah, no, Fentanyl Floyd is... he's a hologram now. They've turned him into a monstrosity, and they trot his this hologram around the country to get people to give them money. I feel sorry for him. His family is definitely using his memory. These people are morons, the grifters. Not just his family, but you know, the legal team and leftoids in general. They're all a bunch of grifters that want to make money off of his legacy. And what's his legacy? He got killed. Allegedly. He died of an overdose. Please give us millions of dollars. Back to Odyssey. Elect me. Should have never went this far. Clear-cut self-defense. They don't want his idea to grow. Everyone will be wasting the ant of a filth. Instant game over for the enemy. Yeah, they're afraid of that. They're afraid people will actually understand. Yes, you have the right to carry a firearm. Yes, if attacked, you have the right to defend yourself. That's what this is about. They're trying to nullify self-defense. I like it because the leftoids are like, well, no, they're actually trying to nullify law and order from the other side and allow vigilantism. Well, Rittenhouse didn't go there as a vigilante. He was putting out fires. Why is it that he never fired a shot beforehand? He had an hour to kill as many people as he wanted to and never did it. He had the opportunity to be in body armor while killing people. He never did that. If he's so murderous, if he's such a vigilante and hates these rioters or protesters or whatever you want to call him, why didn't he act sooner? Why did he wait until he had his back turned to a dude who was charging in on him? Doesn't make any sense, and I wish that the defense had fleshed that argument out a little bit more. And Illustrator. Making no comment while donating means not saying anything stupid. Love your stuff. Oh, thank you. Back to YouTube, and I'll go off in a little bit because, of course, there are about 10 million live streams that will actually be talking about the verdict. I will definitely do a video if the verdict drops tonight. I will stay up for that, but I won't live stream. I'm doing the pre-show for a reason because I'm not going to get a chance. I mean, it's going to be too late, probably. It'll probably not be for 3-4 more hours, and that's at a minimum. And I've got so much literary work to do. I'm sorry, but I'm going to prioritize my books over the trial verdict, technically speaking, because it involves me personally. Crystal, what about if the jury just waits a few weeks so that people forget about it, lose the motivation to stay there, and just randomly announce him not guilty after everyone is focused on something else? That would work if the people that were preparing to riot right now had jobs, but they don't. Most of them aren't from the community. They've got Soros bucks, and they're just picketing there. They'll stay there for months if they need to. Magnus Thomason, whole thing is crazy. That gun to a fist fight thing. Do they not know the point of a gun? No, these people are loony as a tune. Free Rittenhouse. Yeah, I thought that was funny. Rittenhouse was supposed to not use his gun. He was supposed to just pummel the dude with his fists because Rosenbaum is smaller. Let alone that he's a goddamn psycho that's off his meds. Allegedly just sprung from the fucking loony bin. Yeah, you're a 17-year-old kid. You should totally get into a fist fight with someone else. You see, the problem is this, and I wish the defense had brought this up. There have been cases where a person deploys less than lethal, but they have a gun, and they get charged for it because the idea is you shouldn't have deployed it at all unless you were in fear of your life. Well, if you're in fear of your life, you're not going to go with the taser. You're not going to go with the pepper spray. You go with the gun. That's one point. Number two, the idea that you have a responsibility to go man to man with someone, whether they're bigger than you, smaller than you, older than you, or younger than you, when you are lawfully carrying a weapon, doing nothing wrong, and you are being chased and death threats are being hurled at you. And again, the defense should have illustrated this point. Rittenhouse had threats against his life verbally from Rosenbaum while he was being chased. And the prosecution has the burden of proof to prove that that didn't happen, which was mentioned but wasn't driven home as a point, which is an important one. I wish they had made that point 10 times more loudly. Rittenhouse can't be found guilty because it would be clear self-defense. You cannot criminally threaten another person. If I come up to you and I say, I'm going to fucking kill you and I'm running at you, you are justified if you defend yourself. And you do not have to take a swing at me. You don't have to bring out the bear spray, the fucking stun gun. You got a firearm, you're allowed to use it. Clear cut. Especially, I mean, if you're trying to retreat at the time, duty retreat applies in Wisconsin. You're retreating. Someone's threatening you. They're closing the gap between you two. You don't have the ability to run away. You're sort of boxed in. What the fuck more should you even have to say? By the way, no more super chats, please, on any platform, because I got to get through a couple more. Crimes Against Humanity. Shout out my friend Thomas Sheridan in Ireland. Consider that a shout out. Drink a pint from me. Not a very good Irish accent, but it's not as good as my Bernie accent. Sorry. Maxim B. There is no more veggie stock, and my favorite Russian snacks are gone. There's plenty of vegetable bouillon here. If it ever ran out, I'd be sad because I use it in every other Asian dish that I cook. By the way, I make the best stir fry in the world, so come on over for beef and broccoli time. Terrence Scott, I am Malcolm X. Yeah, I think they're trying to cast off the people that Rittenhouse shot as though they were Martin Luther King, so I'd believe it. Scott Steiner, the world's greatest ring announcer. How can SCOTUS ensure that lower courts protect the jury's safety and unbiasedness? Should SCOTUS censure courts that don't adhere to Heller's standard? I don't know. There's no solution to the situation. Judges have a lot of latitude as well, as they should. I mean, I'd rather have the judges have latitude than have the federalization of state trials, ultimately. Despite, I realize that the inclination is to say, well, the government needs to do something about this. No, because the government created the system to begin with. If it's fucked up, the government fucked it up. That's just the way that it is. Jason Griffith, just purchased Greek and Roman ghost stories. It's fantastic. How much liberty do you have when adapting? Also, are you Tarl? Yes, my real name is Tarl Warwick, also pronounced Warwick or other ways. I don't know. I'm not British, so it doesn't really apply. I thought it was funny when I'm playing Fallout 4 and there's the Warwick farm actually there in the Commonwealth. And I was like, I'm among my people. Too bad one of them got replaced by the Institute. Spoiler alert, but, you know, it's okay. You know, they got a nice farm and I like growing things. How much liberty do you have when adapting? I don't adapt these works. I'm editing them. So what I do is I take the initial work, I go through it line by line. I make sure the spelling's proper, the format's proper, everything. I give it new cover art. I give it a new format. I redact any errors. I add my own forward, and then I release the work. And the reason why I did that, and I've explained this a couple times, but I don't know if you've seen me explain this in one of my occult videos. There are so many works on Amazon that are 3-4 times more expensive than mine, and they're not even formatted. All the person did is take the initial PDF scan, plop it into a file with really, really shitty cover art, and they're releasing it for $15, $20 for a paperback. Well, mine are often $6, $7, and they're properly made. So, you know, do a little bit of a shopper's comparison there, and you'll see exactly who the real kahuna is of editing. Rob Gavigan. Joseph Rosenbaum was a good man. He didn't deserve to be killed by killer Klansman Kyle. Joseph was known for his love for children. 11 separate instances, in fact. Yes, Rosenbaum was a great lover of 9 to 12-year-olds. I know it's not something to laugh about in the context, but I mean, come on. The meme about him being a child lover is, it works for propaganda. It's sort of like Let's Go Brandon. People are Googling that, I'm sure, when they're told that, and then they're seeing the truth, and they're not going to get it from CNN. Don, McDonald's is naming a hamburger after Joe Biden. The McBiden will consist of 80-year-old meat served between 9-year-old buns. Oh, that's an old joke. That's an adaptation of the Michael Jackson joke. What was the let me think. I know one of them was how is Michael Jackson like Kmart? They both have boys' pants half off. Don't tell Razor Fist I said that. And I believe that Michael Jackson was innocent, but it's an old joke. What was the other one? How was Michael Jackson like Burger King? They both have meat inside of 8-year-old buns or something like that. No. I know it's terrible, but Diacursite. Warwick is a bass guitar brand. Excellent instruments. Yes, I did see that. Also a soccer team, I think. Oh, the court is back in session, so I'm going to go off now. You can watch the Law and Crime Network if you want to see this, because I've got to tune in myself. We hit 12 Biden loser units today, so that's a good one. One more comment on Odyssey by Valmitic. It's still funny, though. Much like the Rittenhouse trial will be funny if he is exonerated, and then the leftoids do exactly what they did before, which is burn Kenosha to the ground. So yeah, take care, and that's about all. Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to do this probably either. Peace out.